On April 9th, 2025, financial markets were flipped upside down, again. In a move that stunned analysts, traders, and even some members of Congress, Donald Trump announced a 90-day pause on virtually all newly proposed tariffs. But there was one major exception: China. In fact, instead of easing off China, tariffs on Chinese goods were ramped up to an eye-watering 125%. This wasn't just another policy decision, this was a signal to the world. A signal that the United States, under the current Trump administration, is not only willing to change course at the drop of a hat, but is actively embracing unpredictability as a form of economic leverage. And the markets? They exploded. Within minutes of the announcement, the S&P 500 surged by nearly 3%. The Nasdaq posted its best day since the early 2000s. All in all, nearly $2.4 trillion in market value was added across global exchanges in the span of a few hours. Think about that. More money than the entire annual GDP of France, moving just because of one policy shift. But this surge wasn't entirely rooted in optimism. It was based on relief. Relief that for 90 days at least some of the economic pressure valves were being released. Businesses that had been holding off on major decisions due to uncertainty suddenly had breathing room. Investors who had been selling off on trade war fears jumped back in. And yet that relief was short-lived for some. Because while most of the world saw a pause, China got the opposite. The administration more than doubled the existing tariffs on Chinese imports, and this wasn't symbolic. It targeted sectors like tech, pharmaceuticals, and manufacturing, industries where China has global influence. This wasn't just a trade move, it was a geopolitical statement. Now let's rewind. Just months before this announcement, Trump had floated the idea of easing military spending, claiming that America needed to refocus on domestic issues and trim the fat from its $850 billion defense budget. But fast forward to this month, and he signed a military spending bill totaling over $925 billion, the highest in U.S. history. In his own words during the signing ceremony, "We need the strongest military the world has ever seen. Peace through strength isn't just a motto, it's a necessity." So what changed? That's the question markets and allies alike are scrambling to answer. How do you go from proposing budget cuts to blowing past previous spending records in a matter of weeks? The inconsistency in these decisions is creating a kind of chaos that's difficult to manage, not just for Americans, but for the global economy. And here's where things get even more complicated. Because the 90-day tariff pause, while helpful in the short term, created new uncertainties. For example, what happens on day 91? Do the tariffs come roaring back? Do new ones get introduced? Does China retaliate further? Spoiler, they already started. Just hours after the tariff hike against China was announced, Beijing announced retaliatory tariffs of up to 50% on American agricultural exports and consumer tech. Soybeans, semiconductors, smartphones, all hit hard. On top of that, China has begun exploring stronger alliances with other nations, most notably in the global south. And parts of the EU as a way to counterbalance American aggression. And the World Trade Organization? They're not thrilled. According to their projections, if the US-China trade war continues at this pace, bilateral trade could drop by as much as 80%. That would mark a historic low between the world's two largest economies and could knock more than 7% off global GDP. To be clear, that's not just a recession, that's a global economic restructuring. Now let's talk about the ripple effects. As China pivots away from American markets, it's strengthening ties with countries like Brazil, Russia, and even longtime trade-neutral nations like Indonesia and Nigeria. This could mean that American companies relying on Chinese manufacturing or exporting to Chinese consumers may face long-term disruption. Already, companies like Apple and Tesla are warning of price hikes. Amazon vendors are bracing for delays, and small businesses across America that rely on global supply chains are getting crushed under the weight of unpredictability. But here's the deeper issue. This isn't just about tariffs. This is about trust. When a government flip-flops on massive policy issues, from military spending to trade tariffs, businesses lose confidence. And that lack of confidence? It kills investment. It slows hiring. It makes companies keep cash on the sidelines instead of reinvesting into growth. And this kind of volatility is becoming the norm. We're now living in a financial environment where a single press conference, tweet, or offhand remark from a political leader can swing billions, sometimes trillions of dollars in valuation. That's not normal, and while the stock market's response to the tariff pause was positive, economists are warning that this could be just a sugar high. Because what happens when the 90 days are up and there's still no stable trade framework? And what does this mean for investors, especially younger ones? Imagine you're 19, just starting your investing journey. You've got a few $100s in a Roth IRA or Robinhood account. You've heard that slow, steady growth is the key to building wealth. But now, in this chaotic policy environment, one announcement can wipe out your gains overnight. That's not investing. That's gambling with high stakes, and the rules are constantly changing. This new normal creates a financial landscape where long-term planning becomes nearly impossible. Companies don't know what tomorrow looks like, let alone next quarter. And when that's the case, they pull back. They stop expanding. They reduce hiring. They delay wage increases. And the global reaction? Europe is uneasy. Japan has publicly urged the U.S. to reconsider its China stance, and emerging markets are already feeling the pinch of shifting supply chains and investor uncertainty. Many are now aligning more with China simply because the U.S. has become an unreliable trade partner. It's like this. Imagine you're running a business and your main supplier keeps changing the terms every week. One week it's no tariffs, next week it's 125%. How do you plan inventory? How do you price products? How do you stay profitable? You don't, you just survive. And survival isn't the same as growth. Looking forward, analysts are split. Some believe that the market could see a second rally if Trump extends the tariff pause or signs new trade deals, but others warn that if no clear strategy emerges, the current optimism could collapse into a major correction. In plain terms, we could be looking at another 2020-style drop in the market, only this time caused not by a virus, but by political volatility. So here's the takeaway. This isn't just about tariffs. It's not just about China. It's about how unpredictable leadership impacts every layer of the economy, from Wall Street all the way to your wallet. It's about the erosion of economic stability in favor of shock-and-awe policy swings. And most of all, it's about what happens when the most powerful economy in the world stops following a clear playbook. Because in a global economy, consistency is currency. And right now, the U.S. is spending its credibility fast. If you made it this far into the video, you clearly care about understanding the deeper forces driving our economy. So do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, and drop a comment below. How do you think the markets will react once the 90-day pause ends? Are we heading for a rebound or a reckoning? We got more breakdowns like this coming soon. Stay sharp, stay curious, and we'll see you in the next one.